Welcome to STARSPEAK with astrologer Maureen Richmond. Here's where you'll find the latest news on what's up with the heavens. Looking for the inner message from outer space? This is your place. So join me in welcoming your host, astrologer Maureen Richmond.
Welcome, star friends. I'm so glad to be with you again. Today's date is Wednesday, September 27, the year 2023, and you're listening to STARSPEAK. Yes, I'm here every Wednesday night to talk to you about the astrological energies that are affecting us all. And this week we have a special guest for us to talk to and learn a lot about how astrology is involved in the background of a spiritual path that leads to UFOs and the paranormal. Yes, tonight we have Margie K with us. And she's, of course, the CEO of this digital broadcasting network that makes it possible for me to reach out to all those astrologically aware people that are out there in listener land. Hello, I know you're out there. I hear from you sometimes. So I know that you're interested, and I know you have a lot of information and knowledge on your own part. Now, tonight we're going to be talking with Margie. So welcome, Margie. Hello.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is an honor indeed. And by the way, it's special fun for me because Margie and I are fellow Sagittarians.
Yes, indeed. And Sagittarians get along with each other, don't they?
Well, you know, I think we do kind of understand each other. It's a special kind of understanding. And Sagittarius is so much at the core of your personal astrology. Now, Margie, I think you were born on December 10, 1956. Is that right?
That's correct. You're giving away my age, though.
3:15 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City, Missouri, right?
That's right.
Well, you know, I've got your chart right here, and I've been studying it. And it's full of a lot of really very interesting information. But let's start right at the top. And that's because you were born on December 10. You're Sagittarius with the sun located 19 degrees of Sagittarius. And the symbol for Sagittarius is so important because it tells us a lot. It's that arrow. Yeah, there it is right there. That's the arrow of Sagittarius. And it's a kind of a condensed version of what Sagittarius is all about. The mythology that goes with Sagittarius starts with the archer. And the archer, of course, has a bow and arrow. And the archer is riding on a white horse. So it's really the archer with the bow and the arrow on the white horse. And the idea is that these arrows are going to be shot out into the distance. And then the archer will follow and will chase that arrow and go where it goes. So it's the idea of the search or the quest or the journey or the big cosmic scope that the mind is looking for. What do you think about, Margie, when I say that?
Oh, you know, that kind of makes sense. I definitely understand it.
Yeah, your life has been quite a quest, hasn't it?
It has, and it hasn't been boring at all. Let's put it that way.
That's right. The Sagittarius is known for its love of adventure. It's a fire sign, and it's one of the mutable signs. So it's good at adapting and loves the variety of life. And so I think that's, you know, part of what your quest has been. You've done a lot of different things in your life, haven't you?
Most definitely. The variety is what I crave. And it seems like I have to be doing 3 or 4 things at once or I'm not happy.
So boredom sets in, huh?
Mm-hmm, it does. And I can go back and forth between things and have several irons in the fire, but that's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah, the fire signs love challenge and the mutable signs like diversity. So there you have it in a nutshell. Sagittarius, of course, wants to encompass a lot of territory. It's that archer on the horse shooting those arrows out into distant lands of thought and experience, and then chasing that down to find out what it's all about. So this idea of the constant search for truth is part of the sign of Sagittarius. And certainly, Margie, that's been part of your quest, hasn't it?
Oh, indeed, it has. And that has been a big part of my life, seeking the truth in paranormal, UFOs, or whatever it is. I'm always looking for that.
Not only is the sun in Sagittarius in Margie Kay's astrological birth chart, so also is the planet Saturn, which is showing up on the screen. If you're looking at it there on the right side above that heavy dark line, and you can see what looks like an H, that's the symbol for Saturn at 6 degrees of Sagittarius in 55 minutes. And right above that is the red circle with the dot in the center. That's the symbol for the sun, located at 18 degrees Sagittarius and 49 minutes. And so if you happen to be looking at that on screen, you can see for yourself that there are two important planetary arrangements or positions in the sign of Sagittarius. Actually, one's a star, it's the sun, and the other is a planet. So we kind of lump those together in astrology and say planetary placements, even though we know very definitely that the sun is at the center of our solar system, no question about that. And so we have two important factors here in Sagittarius, underlining, amplifying, strengthening, and intensifying this Sagittarian characteristic or message that is in the chart of our beloved Margie Kay, who keeps so many wonderful things and projects going for everybody. Now, Saturn oftentimes symbolizes a person's life work. So the sun often symbolizes the sense of purpose or drive. So both the life work and the drive are bound up with the whole message and experience of Sagittarius for Margie. And I've got to say it because it's really true. Sagittarius implies, or the symbolism implies, long distance travel. I know Margie's traveled to the United States, but what's long distance travel in her world pertains to the potential for interplanetary and intergalactic and maybe even cosmic travel. So Margie, what do you say about all that?
Well, that does not surprise me. I've had several experiences where I was taken off planet and I saw different planets. And I don't know the distance, but it definitely wasn't in our neighborhood. Let's put it that way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I also love travel on the planet. So I've been a lot of places, and I just really love it. That makes sense.
Now, you lived on the west coast of the United States at one point, didn't you?
I did. I lived in Seattle for a while.
And then you were back to the center of the country, right?
Mm-hmm. Came back to the Kansas City area where I was born and spent most of my time here.
So you've certainly traveled all over the western half of the United States, the continental United States, right?
Oh, definitely. Western and Eastern and Canada, Alaska, Europe, Mexico.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So there's the truth of the Sagittarian lifestyle right there. Yeah. You know, it's hungry for experience and to expand the range of experience and to expand understanding through connecting with different cultures and different languages and different religions. All that is connected to the higher purpose of the Sagittarian life path. So Margie has really lived that. And then she spent a lot of time also thinking about and organizing material about visitors from distant places, either in our own solar system or maybe in this galaxy, right, Margie?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. So you're tuned. Yeah, you're tuned into the distant worlds And you can think about that, and you can reach out to that, and that's natural and easy for you. And in fact, it kind of satisfies a longing in that Sagittarian soul for that greater environment, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, and that brought to mind when you said that when I was a teenager, I would often sit outside on my front porch and look up at the stars and ask the question, "Where am I from?" Because I'm definitely not from here.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Sitting outside and asking the stars. I think we can all understand that experience because the stars really represent infinity, or perhaps some people might think of it as the mind of the cosmos, or maybe even the mind of God, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a consciousness that permeates the universe, and it's palpable. You can feel it, you can connect with it, and I definitely do. I always have.
This is so beautiful. Let's think for a minute about a sighting you have already told me about that you had, and this is a UFO sighting, right? July of
Yes.
1974.
Yes, ma'am. That was my awakening moment. I was on a trip. I was actually driving the car, and my mother was in the passenger seat. My brother and sister were in the back seat. We were driving to Texas through Oklahoma. And as we were driving along in the, mid-afternoon, all of a sudden this gigantic cigar-shaped silver craft appeared. Didn't have any wings or tail, and it was huge. It was absolutely huge, and I would say it was about no more than a half a mile to a mile away from us, but the length of it was, at least 300 feet, maybe longer. And we all saw it. We all commented on it. And then suddenly it was dark. And this is in the summer, it doesn't get dark till late. So it was dark within a few minutes and the thing was gone. And we didn't really realize what happened until we got to our destination. And the next morning we woke up in a motel room, and somebody says, "Wait a minute, what happened when we saw that craft?" And then all of a sudden it was dark, and it was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and then it was like 9 o'clock. What happened? So I still don't know what happened, but that was a major sighting, and I realized at that point that we weren't alone.
That sounds like a major episode of some missing time.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. Of course, at that time I didn't know what that meant, but I do now.
You were pretty young at that point, were you not?
Yeah, 17.
My goodness. So here you were driving in the family car in Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so that was a position of responsibility, wasn't it?
Oh yes. And I didn't even have my license that long, but my mother, let me drive. We were on a long, long stretch, and that was back in the day when the speed limits were higher. And I was pushing it, but when we saw that, I know I slowed down because I wanted to get a good look at it.
I'll bet you did. Sagittarius has a love of speed.
Oh, yes. Yes, that is true.
We got the heavy foot on the gas there. Well, this is very interesting because in July of 1974, when you experienced this extraordinary encounter, transiting Neptune, that is Neptune moving through its orbit in the solar system and hence through the zodiac, was at 7 degrees of Sagittarius, precisely conjunct your own Saturn position at 7 Sagittarius. So again, for all the astrology buffs out there, that was transiting Neptune conjunct Margie's Saturn position at 7 degrees Sagittarius, and it was exact in this month when this happened for her, when this extraordinary life-changing moment developed. So that tells us something about the power of Neptune transits to open the way, to open the mind, to time and determine when these developments actually occur. And remember Saturn in a person's chart, and that's the part of her chart that was activated at that time. Saturn in a person's chart frequently shows the type of life work that the soul has come to engage upon. It shows the commitment or the responsibility or the sense of responsibility that the soul has taken on. So in Margie's case, that life work is also characterized by all the themes of Sagittarius: the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of territory, the ability to conceptualize higher dimensions, the ability to conceptualize vast distances, and the capacity to travel mentally or to connect with those who have traveled from a great distance. Neptune, 7 degrees Sagittarius, was activating that Saturn point you see on the right-hand side of the chart if you're looking on screen. And that's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of arrangement. It's very important, does not repeat. It lasts for about a year and a half. Neptune will be in that area of the zodiac. But once it is done with it, it's not repeating. So that was a very special time in life. Neptune was activating your chart, Margie. Tell me what you think about that.
Well, I'm a little bit blown away right now for what you were saying, especially with the interdimensional contact. And that certainly has been something that I've experienced for most of my life. And again, everything you said just fits right in with things that have happened, but especially that particular event. That was a precipice, if you would, for coming events. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize that what I was going to be in for. But yeah, that totally makes sense. And I must say, Maureen, in working with you, and I'm just learning a little tiny bit about astrology, but I've come to realize that there's really is something to this, that it is a real science. And there's definitely something to it. And I wish that I had my charts done when I was younger to maybe, forecast things to come. And especially that one time I told you about when I did travel without consulting my locational astrology chart first. And I had a bizarre experience. So yeah, I highly recommend this to anybody.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the influence of Neptune, the psycho-spiritual influence that was working on your chart and you in this watershed, pivotal moment in your life, July of 1974, when you were just a teen and you saw definite evidence of extraordinary consciousness in the universe, and you absolutely knew it and there was no question about it. And that really stamped you and directed your path. We could say it was a predestined moment. We could say it was written in the astrological chart. And the reason that's true is because the chart is a reflection of the soul's intent. The chart is a reflection of the soul's intent. This is my understanding. The soul of us has the ability to study the arrangement of the solar system and hence the zodiacal influences at the time of choosing an incarnation, and then chooses a point in time to enter into the body that is reflective of what it desires to do under its own divine plan for that incarnation. So it's literally written into the chart. And then along come the transits and activate those points and turn that on like an electrical switch. Boom. This part of your destiny now rings like a bell and gets your attention and changes everything and makes you aware of a much bigger picture that exists within your own psyche that fits in with the evolution of the universe. So Neptune is a slow moving planet zodiacally considered because it's to the outer edges of the solar system. It takes 165 years to go around the entire solar system, and hence 165 years to get around the zodiac, and hence 165 years to get around the circle of a person's chart. That's longer than the average human lifespan. So my point is, it moves slowly in the zodiac compared to, say, the planets to the inner part of the solar system, which move real fast as measured, through the zodiac. So this is slow moving, slowly developing, creeping awareness kind of thing that comes bit by bit. And then all of a sudden it hits a point of recognition when the conjunction becomes exact. And in your case, that was in effect in July of 1974. Now, Neptune as a psychospiritual influence tends to dissolve the boundaries that the rigid materialistic mind sets up for itself. And, that happens in everybody's situation collectively in humanity. It tends to dissolve that and make the self and the consciousness more permeable and reachable by the higher vibrational frequencies and the extended truths of the universe. It tends to dissolve that boundary and attune people to a much broader sense of truth and reality. Does that come close to what you experienced? Does that description, I should say, come close to what you experienced?
Absolutely, it's spot on, and I'm a little bit taken aback with how accurate this is, and how it describes me and my experiences. It's just amazing.
What it all says is that we're connected to our environment. That's why astrology can work. It works because we human beings are part and parcel of an extended energetic environment, which we call the solar system. We're also part of a much bigger system, but if we reach out beyond our planet, the next stage is the solar system. And beyond that is the galaxy. But just expanding our consciousness off of our own planet would take us into the solar system. And that's what astrology deals with, the placement of the planets within the solar system. And we are all connected with these things. We're connected with each other. We're connected with the great mind that manifested it all, the great spirit, the great knower that manifested it all. We're connected with the stars and the beings in the other solar systems and the beings in our own solar system, and with each other and other people in other countries and the other kingdoms on earth, the mineral, the plant, and the animal. That's the fundamental truth. We are connected. So that's why astrology has anything to say to us. It's because of that connection. That's the fundamental reason why it works.
Well,
now,
thank you for explaining that.
Oh, you're welcome. A Sagittarius doesn't need, you already know that. But I do want to say that in this month of July 74, when you had this extraordinary sighting, there was another influence that was in the picture, and that was that Mercury, which had been retrograde, had just turned stationary direct at 4 degrees of Cancer. 4 degrees of Cancer would be down on the lower left portion of the chart if you happen to be looking at it on screen now. Lower left portion, where it's basically an open white field. 4 degrees of Cancer would be, you can mark off those little hash marks there, and you can see that direct station that Mercury made at 4 degrees of Cancer was exactly opposite Margie's own Mercury, halfway across the chart there at 3 degrees of Capricorn and 54 minutes. That Mercury symbol is in green, and it's up on the right hand position if you're looking on screen. And if you're not looking on screen, don't worry. Just think about what I'm saying. The planet Mercury did something very important at 4 degrees of Cancer, which was exactly opposite Margie's own Mercury placement of 4 Capricorn. So, there were two very strong influences that were in the picture at the same time you had this event in July of 74. I should also add that Pluto was acting on Margie's chart from the 4th degree of Libra also square that Mercury position at 4 degrees of Capricorn. So Pluto, Neptune, and Mercury were all pulling and tugging and activating and turning on the electrical power to bring the karmic destiny of this chart into manifestation. July of 1974, when the teenage Margie K encountered the reality of cosmic consciousness. And we'll be taking a break here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back with more discussion of Margie K's life experience as the cosmic experiencer of the extended field of consciousness under Sagittarius.
It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The UNX Network Year 2 anniversary at XCon 2023. XCon is being held this year from October the 30th to November 1st at the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Conference Center in Springfield, Missouri. Top speakers include host of America Unearthed, Scott Walter, plus Haley Ramsey, Sev Talk, UNX's very own Maureen Richmond and Dan Terry, Mindy Toutfest, Harriet McFeely, Forrest Crawford, and many more. And they're all coming to deliver new information on topics like UFOs, alien encounters, cryptids and ancient secrets, and real hauntings from the afterlife. Join us for the film premiere of A Haunting in Blue Hill. And don't miss the Mad Hatter Paranormal Halloween Bash, Banquet, and Costume Contest on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. So join us as we close out the 2023 conference season. Info and tickets are available now at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com, and we'll see you there.
Welcome back, star friends. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to STARSPEAK. Today, I'm chatting with UNX Digital Platform's own Margie K. She's the founder and CEO of this wonderful enterprise where we can all learn about UFO and the paranormal. She's the one who had the inspiration and made this all happen. So it's so much fun to talk with Margie about her spiritual path that has brought her in this direction. And the sign of Sagittarius is very key to it. And once more, we're going to return to that theme right away. Margie, what about the thing that happened December 1985? Do you remember that?
I can't forget it. I think that was the biggest event of my entire life. I was living in Seattle, and my brother and my two daughters were with me. We went to my massage therapist. I had injured my back, and I'd been seeing this guy for months. I knew him real well. And after I had my massage, we were putting our coats on, getting ready to leave. And he said, "Would you like to try a light experiment?" The only thing is, he wasn't acting or sounding like himself. So my spidey sense kind of went up, and I knew something was going on. And I said, "Sure, I'll try a light experiment." So he showed me a green light, had me look into that, and then he had me look into the red light, and back and forth for I don't know, a couple of minutes. And then he says, "Now what do you see?" And I looked up at him, and all I saw was a skeleton standing there. That was it. I was just seeing his skeleton. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck just happened when this voice comes from my right, and on the wall is a head only of a man, and he had a helmet on. It came down to a point in the middle at the top, covered up his hair. And he said, "I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision." He said, "We're going to be doing work together. I will be in touch soon." And he disappeared. And then I look over, my therapist is back to normal. I look at my brother and my daughters, and I said, "Did you see that?" And they said, "See what?" They didn't hear or see anything. None of them did. And to them, it was just from 1 second to the next. They didn't know all this stuff that had just happened to me, in a very short period of time, but still, it was long enough. And my massage therapist was back to normal. He was talking normally again. So I knew something really strange had just happened, but didn't know exactly what. And I would find out over time what that meant by X-ray vision. This being called Thor activated something within me to enhance my psychic abilities I already had, but this kind of put it over the edge so that now I could see inside the human body, see bones, muscles, tissues, organs, everything inside the body. And while I had been doing psychic readings for people for quite some time, at that point, I never had this ability. And so this was a big, big deal. And I've been able to do that ever since. And it's only gotten better over time. But the thing was, I found out much, much later, right around 2012, who Thor was. And he is Valiant Thor, the extraterrestrial that visited the Pentagon from 1957 to 1960 and met with Dr. Frank Stranges. And Frank Stranges wrote the book Stranger at the Pentagon, and it has continued on since then. So I have been in touch with Thor telepathically. We have full conversations. I can call on him when I need him. And if I'm in trouble, where there's a big problem, I just call on him and he's there. He saved my life several times. And it's just been an amazing experience. But it all started on that day in Seattle.
It's an astounding story of a breakthrough in consciousness. And it involves so many different things. It wasn't just your own will and choice. It had to do with a collaborative partnership that you have with this being. And we've got to dig into this because this is just so powerful. This is when you are basically given a far greater capacity of clairvoyant vision, right?
Oh, yeah, a big time.
And yes, Sagittarius was involved here. If you're looking at it on screen, you're seeing the glyph now. Guess what? The planet Uranus, which was not in Sagittarius at the time that Margie was born. In fact, it was in Leo down at the bottom of the chart. If you're looking on screen, it's that green symbol that looks like an H at the bottom. That planet had slowly moved up to the 19th degree of Sagittarius, precisely where Margie's sun is located astrologically. And when I say where it's located, it means where it was at the time of her birth, called the natal placement, in other words, because that's where it was at the time of birth. The time of birth is the cosmic stamp moment. That's the pattern. Wherever the planets were at the moment of birth is the reflection of the soul's intent. And every part of the chart has something to say in that regard. At this point, Uranus had moved up to the sun degree 19 Sagittarius and was right there at that very same position in December of 1985. Now, Uranus itself, astrologically, is characterized as an awakener and electrical influence, a breakthrough power, because it was discovered in modern times by means other than unaided human sight. All the other celestial bodies humanity had known about for millennia because they were visible to the unaided human eye. Uranus was the first to be discovered differently, to be intuited and hypothesized and then located with a telescope. And it was found in the late 1700s, which was the beginning of the modern era, industrialization, and the use of electricity. So Uranus is inherently connected in the astrological lore with breakthroughs in consciousness, advancements, accelerations of evolution, and most definitely all forms of advanced technology. So that's what was acting on her sun degree at this pivotal moment. And it's Uranus is symbolized by a bolt of lightning. And it seems to me, Margie, that moment when you suddenly saw the skeleton of your massage therapist must have been a lightning bolt moment.
Oh, it was, and I was taken aback. There wasn't anything gradual about this experience. It was boom, right in your face.
This is what the astrological lore says about the working of Uranus. It's instantaneous. Whereas with Neptune, it's a slow-moving, creeping, evolving, evolutionary thing that takes place over time. With Uranus, it's bam, all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was.
Now, there were some other influences working on your chart at that same time. Transiting Pluto at 7 Scorpio was precisely square Uranus at 7 Leo. And transiting Neptune, again, was acting on the chart differently than it was in July of 74, but it's still Neptune again at 2 degrees of Capricorn, squaring the Mars position of Margie's chart. So Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, all of them were working on the karmic imprint of the chart here to bring forth the potential that was there. And again, this was this, 2 things that happened for you in this situation. One was that your clairvoyant powers of perception were massively enhanced. And 2, you came to know of Thor.
Yeah.
And that was life-changing for you, wasn't it?
Oh, it was life-changing. Of course, I still didn't know exactly who he was, but he was with me for, years before I found out who he was. And then one day I saw something in Independence. I saw this beam of light come down onto the RLDS temple, which is a spiral temple. And this beam of light appeared in some weird clouds. The clouds had covered the temple up, and then like 20 feet from the ground is how low those clouds went. And then they gradually went up, but they still covered up the top spire and where the light was, the beacon. And then this white beam of light appears through the clouds. I couldn't see where it came from or if it was going to or from something. And I just thought, what the heck is that? And Thor's voice came in and said, "This is Commander Thor, and you're watching communication take place between our craft and people in the sub-basement of that building." And I had to stop the car because I was in shock that it was my Thor's voice and he's saying he's Commander Thor. I thought, what in the world is going on here? It was still some time. It was still 6 more years before I found out through a friend of mine, Gail Larmer. She looked it up. She found the Stranger in the Pentagon book and sent it to me. And I was just absolutely amazed.
I get the feeling that what this means is that you're in touch with some kind of galactic command power. Would that be a correct way of describing it?
Oh, yes, it would.
Wow.
Most definitely. He has a purpose for me. And I'll just tell you what he told me. And this, this fits in with my life and my chart that you did. He told me to get the word out, tell people that there are other types of beings in this universe and other dimensions that they live in, and that they can travel back and forth between dimensions. But I wasn't getting the word out fast enough. I started off with a blog, then he had me write some books, then he told me to start UNX magazine, and then he finally told me to start the UNX network. And that's how all of this came about. It's all because of Valiant Thor.
Very powerful. And December of 1985 was a pivotal moment in the development of all of this. Of course, there have been a lot of extraordinary moments in your life, but December of 1985, we know, was certainly a key point of awakening. And then I think you've mentioned August of 1986 as being also an important time. What do you remember from August of 1986?
August of 86. Now you're going to have to jog my memory because it's gone out of my head.
Well, I can tell you what was happening astrologically. It was a little bit different from what other things we've been talking about. This time, Jupiter in Pisces was passing over your own moon position. And we haven't talked about this moon position. So actually, this is a good thing to talk about now, because it's a truism of all astrological charts. And as we're all listening about Margie's life story, we're learning a little bit about our own life stories too. And something important to know about our own life stories is that they are conditioned or symbolized by not only the sun sign, but the moon sign. So in Margie's case, the sun is in Sagittarius, but the moon is in Pisces. And the moon is in a different sign every 2.5 days or so. So the only way that you can know for sure where the moon is in your own astrological signature is to get a properly calculated chart done based on the birth time, date, and place. If you don't have your birth time, an estimated position of the moon can be identified, but it's much better to proceed from the full information: birth, date, time, and place. And I have that for Margie. So we're able to know what the moon position was at the time that she first took a breath and let out that Sagittarian voice to let us know she was here. The moon stood 23 degrees Pisces. So the sun is in Sagittarius, but the moon is in Pisces, and that's a different thing. But there's a commonality there because the Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac, and it symbolizes the final stages of an evolution in which everything returns to the creator or to the creative center. It signifies a connectedness, a oneness, a blending together, whereas the signs in the earlier part of the zodiac stand for individuation, individuality arising and defining itself. But Pisces stands for the merging, the principle of merging, of coming back together, of coming to the center, of finding the commonalities, not the differences, but the commonalities that unify not just people, not just groups, not just nations, but everything in creation. The commonalities that bring us together. That's part of the function of the sign of Pisces in the zodiac. And that function was being really emphasized in Margie's chart in July and August of 1986. And this was also a year in which she took on more responsibilities because it was her Saturn return. And I should think that this would have been a year in which your sensing capacity, your healing, your ability to heal and to see into the condition of other people and life situations should have been much enhanced. Does that jog a memory for you?
Oh, definitely was. And yeah, I remembered what happened. And I'll come back to that. I took my brother and my 2 children out to see the Perseid meteor shower in August of 86. And so we're out in the middle of nowhere. I just drove and drove until we found a dark spot and pulled off into the side of, a farmer's field, and there was nobody around. It was on a side road and very dark. So we were sitting on top of the hood of the car, and my girls were on a blanket on the ground. We're watching the meteors, and all of a sudden, this light comes across from behind us, directly above us, and goes along. And I said, "Oh, that's a satellite." And so I pointed that out, take a look at the satellite, kids. Oh, okay, that's cool. And then it stopped. And then a second one came and then joined it. And then 3 more came at the exact same speed, the exact same trajectory, right above our heads. But when the 5th one got to the first few that were already together, it was like they joined into one craft. The second that it hit, they all went at a 90-degree angle off at an incredible speed. And we just looked at that and said, okay, that was not any satellite. And we got up and got in the car and took off because we knew we had just seen something that was otherworldly.
Otherworldly, yeah, that's definitely the purview of Pisces. And combining that with your Sagittarius energy, we see where this goes. This constant cosmic connection with every kind of evidence of the higher worlds. It's so fantastic. Yeah. And I just have to tell our listeners before we get too far along in this program that Margie is so multiply talented. And that's written in her chart in a lot of different ways. But not only does she have the Sagittarius enthusiasm for the great spiritual quest of life and the expansion of consciousness and the mystical input of the Pisces moon, she has technical skills and capabilities, which she comes by honestly, astrologically. Pluto and Jupiter in the technically oriented, meticulous sign of Virgo, and she really has that ability. It was in the sign of Virgo in the mid-1960s that Uranus and Pluto made a conjunction. So Margie was a child during that period of time, but that's when the space program began to accelerate in the United States, and when many more sightings of unidentified flying objects and anomalistic events began to be reported in the sign of Virgo. And this drove our nation and all people into a greater need for understanding scientific, technological matters. Margie has this in her chart with Pluto and Jupiter in Virgo. So she's not only in the higher dimensions, she's also in the nuts and bolts of technology, which she uses day in and day out to bring us these programs that we so much enjoy on this platform. So Margie, what do you think about all that?
Well, I took a test several years ago to see if I was left or right brained. And it seems that I use both sides equally. So that really makes sense with what you were saying with the tech side and the spiritual side.
Yes, both imagination and ratiocination. And this is so interesting because the Pisces moon in Margie's chart, which you can see up on the left-hand side, it's a little blue moon there. That's the way this particular chart program prints it, is in opposition to Jupiter in Virgo down on the right-hand side. That opposition describes that complementary connection between the imagination in Pisces and the ratiocination or the logical or the mathematical or the technical capability in Jupiter. So Jupiter's position in Virgo, I should say. So this polarity of the Pisces moon in the Jupiter in Virgo is very strongly pronounced here. And it plays into this chart in a lot of different ways. First off, bringing that imaginative capacity to Earth through the technical means of Virgo, and then emphasizing the impact of Jupiter, which, guess what, is the ruler of Sagittarius and stands for the enlargement of awareness in all directions. So that theme is repeated yet again here in a different way. Well, so the Perseid meteor shower was the 1986 event. it was so important for you. Margie, can you think of any other times that you would like to talk about? Any other specific moments or events? Because if you don't, I've got a little bit of future viewing to do in your chart if you would like.
Yeah, because I can't remember exact dates or even months of some events. So yeah, I'd be interested in knowing what's coming up for the future.
Something really interesting is happening in your chart right now, and that's the activation again from the planet Uranus. You know, the planet Uranus was one of the big actors in your 1985 experience when you found out so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Uranus is acting on your chart in the current calendar year by conjunction to your ascendant. So if you're not looking at the graphic, don't worry about it. You can just understand this from just thinking about it. The chart is a circle. Uranus has moved very slowly from its position in Leo over the course of her life back around to the ascendant. It takes a long time to do that, but it's a very important moment when it does. And Uranus is going to make an exact conjunction to what's called the ascendant. That's the part of the zodiac that was arising on the eastern horizon at the moment of your birth. Uranus will make an exact conjunction to that place 3 times. It's already done it once, June and July of 2023. Then it will do it again in retrograde motion, October and November of 2023. And we know those are important months for you because that's coming, but it includes XCon.
Yeah, definitely.
And yes. And then finally in April of 2024, which is another important month for you because you have, I believe, a big conference in Southeast Missouri at that point, right?
I've got a lot of things going on in April of 2023. Yes. And in fact, I'm speaking at 2 conferences in Piedmont, Missouri and Mountain Home, Missouri, which are, big UFO hotspots. But at that time is the solar eclipse. And they're having their conferences right at the time of the solar eclipse. So I'm expecting a lot to happen at that time. What does the chart say?
Well, that's really consistent with the Uranus activation because it's instantaneous and it tends to bring a lot of opportunities all at one time. And you remember how big a breakthrough it was for you in December of 1985, right? That huge breakthrough. That's the Uranus energy. So this can be another big breakthrough for you in terms of all of your life projects, in terms of what you're intending on doing this incarnation. It can be a period of time when you stand out as a leader in your field, as an innovator, and attain to a considerable amount of recognition. And again, that's already in the works because it started in June and July of 2023. You've already had an episode of this. Then you have another one coming right now, October and November of 2023, and then a third activation in April of 2024. So the planet Uranus, which is in astrology innately associated with anomalies, including UFOs, is right on your ascendant, which is a very powerful point in anybody's chart and a very powerful, important, sensitive point in your chart, Margie, as well. So something is really happening. You're about to really have a big step forward in your destiny path.
Wow. Well, I guess I'm going to start wearing a GoPro camera.
Yes.
Yeah. All the time. And I've got some cameras to put up on my a car that I haven't done yet. So I'll get those ready as well.
Well, it's going to be a promising time for you. And yes, all sorts of exciting paranormal developments and breakthroughs and sudden manifestations can occur with this arrangement that you have going on all the way through the spring of 2024 with kind of focused intensity at those 3 points that I mentioned.
Wow. That's just amazing, Maureen. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. And I find it interesting that you've done charts of other people that are in ufology and that planet Uranus keeps showing up.
It really does. It's very powerful in the personal astrologies of George Adamski, J. Allen Hynek, Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, Stephen Greer. It's one of the driving astrological powers of the UFO movement. That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Margie K., thank you so much for being here on STARSPEAK. It's been a real honor to have you and to discuss your life path. Thank you so much for your time, and also thank you for everything you do to advance the UFO community, all the projects that you have going on. You're really an inspiration.
Well, thank you so much, Maureen. And you are extremely talented at what you do, and I really appreciate it.
It's a lot of fun to be here with you, working on all these concepts that we've got in mind. So, and thank you to all our listeners today who joined in with us for this wonderful discussion with Margie K. We've learned so much about how a person can profit from and grow and experience with their transits. I've enjoyed it, and thank you all for stopping in today and listening to STARSPEAK. Please join me back here next Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 4 Pacific for more STARSPEAK.